In Katagiri Senior High School, teacher Shin Yasuda finishes class, urging students to prepare for next year's college exams. He advises them to enjoy their time before it gets busy. Yasuda mentions joining them at the pool, but Toru Ishikawa insists they won't go with him. Yasuda clarifies he wasn't suggesting going with the boys. You get the idea. During a free period, the girls chat about how cool Yasuda-sensei is when he doesn't say weird things. Hori suggests ignoring him. A girl wonders if something is going on between Hori and Yasuda-sensei. Hori explains that when she walked through the corridor, Yasuda thought she looked down and encouraged her, mentioning he likes flat-chested girls. Yukai Yoshikawa shares an incident of a guy from another class asking for her number, but Hori advised her to decline since he didn't ask personally. Ishikawa appears, offering to go to karaoke with expiring coupons. Hori declines and accidentally drops her phone. Miyamura, a silent observer, picks it up and returns it. Yuki notices his gloomy aura. They playfully imagine Miyamura as an otaku, with Hori envisioning him playing with figurines. Yuki asks Ishikawa about Miyamura, but he has no information. Checking the time, Hori hurries home. Yuki teases Hori about having a boyfriend due to her beauty and popularity. She gets home and immediately changes clothes and begins cleaning the house Hori's mom calls her to also handle dinner. Hori goes to pick her younger brother, Sauda Hori, from his school. When they were going back home, Sauda was happy because they were having hamburgers for today's dinner. One day, Hori is home when her brother Sauda returns. She's alarmed by his bleeding nose and asks what happened. A young man who helped Sauda decides to leave. Sauda wants him to stay, and Hori, feeling guilty for not noticing earlier, asks him to stay as a thank you. The man explains that Sauda got scared by a dog, fell, and got a bloody nose. He praises Sauda's smart response in sharing his name and address. Hori disagrees, calling Sauda careless. The man compliments Hori for managing the house alone, surprising her. To confirm her identity, he mentions her class. Shaken, Hori asks if he goes to her school. He introduces himself as Izumi Miyamura, and Hori recalls the different Miyamura she knows from their class. The next day at school, Hori feels uneasy about the differences in Miyamura's behavior. During class, she approaches him, and they step outside to talk. Hori, following her brother Sauda's request, invites Miyamura to her house again. Surprisingly, Miyamura agrees, planning to bring a picture book for Suda. He admits expecting Hori to avoid him after the previous day's events. Confused, Hori questions why she would avoid him. Despite their quirks, she realizes they both have hidden sides. Hearing this, Miyamura blushes and smiles. Hori suggests he removes his glasses and ties his hair like when they first met, but he mentions his piercings. When asked, Miyamura reveals he has 9 piercings, prompting Hori to comment that it's a lot. As Miyamura becomes a regular visitor, Hori discovers he's not an otaku. His family owns a bakery, he pierced himself in junior high, and he struggles with studies except for health and physical education. Miyamura praises Hori's grades, and as they flip through a magazine, he comments on an egg sale. Looking closely, Hori notices his long lower eyelashes. Miyamura notices her staring and calls out to her, bringing her back to the ad. She happily says that she will attend the sale if no unexpected meeting comes up. However, the next day, a sudden student council meeting is announced, forcing Hori to stay after school and pass the sale. Undeterred, she immediately texts Miyamura to attend the sale for her as she rushes to the meeting, much to his dismay. Miyamura runs and takes off his blazer and glasses before rushing to jump over the fence. As he jumps, he sees Yuki and lands in front of her, apologizes, and runs off, leaving a confused Yuki to watch him. At home, Hori thanks Miyamura for helping with the errand. Miyamura shares his accidental encounter with Yuki while in his outside appearance, prompting Hori to comment on keeping their hidden sides private. Miyamura expresses the same desire and earns an embarrassed reaction from Hori. Meanwhile, at Hori's house, Miyamura complains about his tattoos showing during swimming class, surprising Kyoko. Hori's classmate asks for her notes, leaving Miyamura alone. Toru surprises him by talking about Hori's popularity and asks if they are dating, to which Miyamura declines. Toru then reveals his feelings for Hori and plans to confess to her. Yuki gets angry at Toru for skipping PE and leaving all the work to her. Hori talks to Miyamura about how it is rare for them to be together, but he avoids her, and Hori is worried if she had done anything wrong with Toru glaring at him. Toru asks Hori if she has time after school, but Miyamura tells her that he can go pick up Sauda, so she should go with Toru after school. After school, Toru confesses to Hori. At Hori's house, Koyoka arrives, and Miyamura wonders what will happen if Toru and Hori start dating. When Hori comes back home, she confronts Miyamura, who believes that she'll ask him not to come by her house anymore. However, Hori heard from Toru that Miyamura had said how she and him didn't fit, and was desperate to find out why. Miyamura said that it was because he is all shady and plain, so it will ruin her reputation and bring her trouble. Hori, whilst listening to him, gets angry because she doesn't care about her reputation. Hori hits Miyamura and says if he doesn't come anymore, who will wake her up when she falls asleep and how they'll be left with lots of leftovers. Hori and Miyamura talk about Toru, and Hori says that she rejected him. The next day at school, Miyamura sees Toru with red-rimmed eyes, and he immediately comforts him. Hori and Miyamura are on their way back home after shopping for groceries. As they pass an anime poster with music playing from the speakers, Miyamura hears Hori singing along to the lyrics. Unaware Miyamura was listening. When he compliments her singing, Hori bashfully denies it. Miyamura then asks what type of music she likes, and Hori realizes she doesn't know, only having memorized the lyrics to the anime that Sauda is into. Later, Hori returns home to find her mother welcoming her home. The Hori family talk about Miyamura-kun, while Kyuko massages her mother. Later, when Yuriko asks what Miyamura's full name is, while talking to her mother, Hori realizes despite all this time she has gotten to know Miyamura, she still doesn't know his first name. At school, Kyuko is worried to know Miyamura's first name because he has been coming over to her place for a while. She tried to see his name from the sheet, but the teacher had taken the attendance sheet with him. Kyoko imagines what will happen if she asks Miyamura's name to himself, so she decides not to do it. Kyoko peeks in the PE changing room to get his first name, but everyone calls Miyamura with his family name. Boys saw Kyoko speaking to them. While walking through the corridor, Yuki asks if Kyoko was really peeking to the boy, which Kyoko boldly agrees. At the end of school, Kyoko was looking at the top student list. Toru came. Kyoko tried to ask Toru about Miyamura, but Toru ran away as he was still heartbroken. At home, Hori gets depressed because she couldn't figure out his first name while eating curry for dinner for the third time. Her mom asks if he will be coming over on Saturday, and she realizes she could figure out his full name when he introduces himself to her mother. The next day, Miyamura rang the bell and Kyoko's mom, Yuriko, greeted Miyamura. Miyamura gave her the cake he brought and Hori's mother, Yuriko, put the cake on the table. Yuriko tells Miyamura that Kyoko is busy doing the errands, and that Kyoko also tells many things about him. Sauda also came home. Yuriko said that she had to leave for work, and asked Miyamura to stay and thanked Miyamura for always helping. When Kyuko comes back and asks about her mother, Miyamura tells that she has already left for work. Kyuko, realizing that her mother sends her to do errands so she can talk alone with Miyamura. Miyamura tells Kyuko that her mother is the first one to call him by his first name after a long time. Curious, Kyoko asks about his name. Miyamura, seeing Kyoko's behavior, said that she has been acting weird lately and asked if she have a crush on someone. Kyoko take a seat and told that she has been worried because she didn't know Miyamura's first name. Miyamura start laughing, borrowed a pen, and write down his name on a paper. Kyoko decides to keep the paper. Kyoko tries to call him by his first name but gets awkward and decides to call him Miyamura. Kyoko asks if he knows her first name, so Miyamura fastly replies that he knows her name, Kyuko. At school, Hori is talking with Kakeru Sengoku and Sakura Kano, student council members. Sengoku thanks Hori for always helping them. Later, Yuki asks why Hori has to do student council work, but she replies that they are still new, so they are having a hard time. Yuki tells Hori that they are just using her, but Hori said she doesn't mind. Toru and Miyamura were watching them and said that Hori is having a hard time, but both of them are too dumb to help out with anything. Miyamura talks about student council president Kakeru Sengoku, who is popular with girls and wonders that Hori is helping him out because she likes him. Ayasaki came in and asked for Hori. Hori gave her the files. Ayasaki is a member of the student council. Yuki said that she is also the girlfriend of the student council president. They were just putting Ayasaki's work on her. Hori packs her bag and goes home. Miyamura wonders if Hori is alright. In the corridor, Miyamura wonders if Hori will feel better if he made her cake. Suddenly, Ayasaki bumps into Miyamura. He asks if she is alright, but she puts the blame on Miyamura and asks him to help her out. After picking the books, she hurried and left. He realized that she dropped and left behind the budget report. The next day, Miyamura comes to school and sees many students gathering and watches some people talking. Yuki asks Miyamura for help as Hori is getting scolded by the student council. Hori claims that she gave everything including the budget paperwork to Ayasaki, but Sengoku says that Ayasaki didn't see it and keeps claiming that Hori's at fault. Students watching them start to talk bitterly. Sengoku asks that he only wants her to apologize if she's at fault. Toru and Yuki try to stand with Hori, but students stop them. Miyamura asks Toru to hold his bag and glasses and goes to Hori and asks her to not apologize and give President Sengoku a headbutt. Everyone becomes shocked seeing this. Miyamura gives Sakura the budget paper and tells them that he found it in the hall and Ayasaki told him to throw it away. Ayasaki tries to decline it, but then she remembers her saying that. Sengoku and Sakura become angry at Ayasaki. She cutely starts crying and apologizes. The council apologizes, and it's revealed the reason why Hori is doing the student council's bidding is because Sengoku has dirt on her for when she used to bully him when they were younger as kids. The next day, Sengoku becomes scared of Miyamura, having been traumatized by the headbutt yesterday. As the students prepare to start their third year, Miyamura gives Hori a CD for her birthday, while Hori tries to imagine what life would be like without Miyamura. When Miyamura was a kid, everyone used to ignore him because they all thought that Miyamura was weird. The teacher would ask everyone to find a pair, but no one wanted to pair up with Miyamura. A kid mocked him, saying that no one wanted to pair up with Miyamura. The narrative then shifts to middle school days, where a teacher instructed students to form groups of 5-5 for a science experiment. Once again, Miyamura found himself alone as his classmates made fun of him, claiming he was totally impossible to read. The video then delves into Miyamura's personal life, showing him at home contemplating the exhaustion caused by school. Miyamura pierced his ear with a safety pin. The story progresses to the early days of high school, where some girls discuss Miyamura's gloomy demeanor, referring to him as a potential recipient of a depression award. Hori intervenes, curious about the conversation. The girls reveal they were talking about Miyamura, and Hori expresses surprise, admitting she hasn't heard of him. The girls share their impressions of Miyamura, and Hori decides to approach him directly. Hori approaches Miyamura and asks what he is doing. Miyamura hastily hides something but later drops it. Hori tells Miyamura about the group projects for the next class, introduces herself, and asks Miyamura to at least remember classmates' names, even though she didn't know who Miyamura was. Hori learns that people talk about Miyamura as a loner, gloomy, and different person. To her surprise, Miyamura reacts casually, and Hori finds it refreshing that he doesn't fit the typical stereotypes. In the present day, every student eagerly checks their class assignments. Fortunately, Yuki, Hori, Miyamura, and his friends turn out to be in the same class. Hori asks about Miyamura's class, but Miyamura is depressed and tearing up because students are whispering about him. The group starts talking to each other, and Miyamura wonders in his mind if he is really part of the group. Later in the classroom, the teacher asks the students to split into groups of 4 to work on their reports. Miyamura remembers his past, but Toru, Yuki, and Hori group up with Miyamura and start splitting the work. Miyamura goes with the flow. The group has fun chatting with each other, a shocking and surprising experience for him. In the next scene, we see Miyamura on the school roof, where he is once again contemplating whether he is friends with these people. Toru asks Miyamura what he thinks about him, but Miyamura intervenes and asks for Toru's opinion about him. Toru replies with a series of things, and said that Miyamura is the only one who calls him by his last name and asks what he thinks of him. Miyamura calls him by his first name and gets really embarrassed. Toru calls Miyamura weird, which makes Miyamura remember his old school days when his classmate called him weird. Miyamura tries to apologize, but Toru said that Miyamura is weird but not bad. He is just awkward and calls Miyamura by his first name, lighting a new hope in Miyamura. When they get back to class, Hori punches them on the head as they were supposed to finish the report during lunch break. Miyamura is happy with his current life. On the next day, Miyamura calls Toru by his last name, but Toru thinks that they will start calling each other by their first name. Sauda decides to go to school early, so Hori also goes to school early, where at the cafeteria she meets Ayasaki, who also came to school early because she thought they had an assembly today. Ayasaki asks if Hori is Miyamura's girlfriend, but Hori instantly declines it, so Ayasaki asks if she can take Miyamura. Hori doesn't like this idea and says that Miyamura belongs to her and she will not give him to Ayasaki. Ayasaki tries to argue with Hori, but Hori says that Miyamura belongs to her. Some students also come to the cafeteria and Hori leaves. During lectures, Hori is only thinking about Miyamura. At home, Hori is surprised because Sauda leaves his clothes in the room before going out to play. Miyamura comes with cake for Suda, but finds out that he is not home because he is outside playing soccer with friends. Miyamura brings tea, and they start talking to each other, after which they start watching a horror movie. Miyamura gets really scared watching a horror movie. Hori's phone rings, which makes Miyamura really scared, and suddenly the lights go off and come back after some time. To scare Miyamura more, Hori decides to watch the first 3 sequels of that horror movie and watch the other 2 when Sauda gets home. Miyamura looks at Hori's hand and says that Yuki was right about Hori having double joints. Hori grabs Miyamura's hand and says she loves him slowly, but then she changes it and says that she loves his hands because they are nice, love birds. Our dumb Miyamura understands it and says that he also loves Hori. After some time, Sauda also comes home. Hori asks Miyamura to wash hands with Sauda, and they wash hands together. Ayasaki told the event to Sakura. Toru was hearing their conversation. Miyamura goes to the classroom with a bruise on his face. He says that he got in a fight with Toru. Hori starts yelling. Miyamura tries to stop her, but she doesn't listen. Toru also comes to class, but Hori also sees him covered in bruises more than Miyamura. Miyamura only gets hit once and then beats the pulp out of Toru. Toru tells Miyamura about Hori, that she loves him, but Miyamura denies it, and Toru and Miyamura end up getting into a fight. First they beat each other, and now they both say that they are at fault. Yuki understood the reason for the fight but didn't tell Hori about it. Toru walks through the school when a sudden gust of wind scatters a bunch of papers in front of him. Sakura, concerned, asks if he's okay, and Toru collects the papers and hands them to Sakura. She counts them to ensure she has all of them and expresses her gratitude to Toru for his help. Sakura then brings up Remi, Ayasaki, and admires how she quietly opens the windows for them. Toru is impressed by Remi's hard work and dedication, and Sakura once again thanks Toru for his assistance. The scene then shifts to Miyamura, who surprises Toru with ice cream. Miyamura explains that he didn't meet Toru as planned because Hori, feeling hot, made him promise to take off his jacket while walking home, and in return, she gave him some ice cream. Toru is delighted by the gesture but becomes a bit disheartened when he realizes that he can't eat melon ice cream. Toru and Miyamura encounter Sengoku and make a point to offer him the melon ice cream. After a comical exchange involving tongue displays, they discover that Toru is the only one who missed out on enjoying the ice cream. In jest, Toru sticks out his tongue, prompting Miyamura to compare it to a snake's tongue. Sengoku finds this amusing and decides to share the story with Sakura and Ayasaki. Toru is intrigued and asks about Sakura, prompting Sengoku to describe her as the glasses girl on the student council with Ayasaki and himself, the nerdy girl. Toru jokingly suggests that the student council is Sengoku's harem, and learns that they also have access to the air conditioning in their room. Sengoku invites them to visit the student council room anytime, and the group decides to take him up on the offer. Meanwhile, Ayasaki asks Toru about his feelings for Hori, suggesting that she may be a better match for him than Miyamura. Yuki advises against this, reminding her that he has given up on Hori. Sakura whispers to Sengoku and inquires about Toru's crush on Hori, to which Sengoku confirms. They have been waiting for a long time, but Hori and Miyamura are still not back. Sakura wonders what they might be doing, clarifying that she doesn't mean anything strange by it. This makes Toru anxious, and he wonders about their activities. Meanwhile, Miyamura accidentally spills cola and then drops some coins. Ayasaki tells Sakura that she shouldn't have mentioned it, and Toru is shocked. Yuki reassures Toru, saying that Miyamura might have just dropped some change or something, and her hunch turns out to be right. Toru starts petting Yuki's head and praises her kindness, suggesting that her name should be on the class prosperity list. Finally, Miyamura and Hori return to class and whisper to Toru that Hori has screwed him, leading Toru to misunderstand something. Miyamura tries to explain, but Toru refuses to listen and covers his ears. Sengoku and others observe this and ask Hori about it. She explains that Miyamura spilled his cola, but Toru still doesn't understand and opens the cola, causing it to explode. Sakura gives Toru a handkerchief to clean up. Later, Hori and Miyamura are studying at Hori's house because the AC is broken. Miyamura mentions that the heat doesn't bother him and that he sleeps without clothes at night. Hori stutters and asks if he sleeps completely naked, but Miyamura corrects her, saying that he wears underwear. They both have a completely different understanding of what is considered normal. Quite amusing. Hori begins to question what would happen if Toru were to strip in front of Miyamura, but Miyamura stops her and asks why she's asking that. Hori explains that she's simply curious about what would make him flustered, as she has never seen Miyamura embarrassed or blushing. Miyamura asks if Hori truly believes that he never gets flustered, and Hori admits that perhaps only a little bit. Miyamura then shares an encounter he had not long ago with a friend from middle school, Shindo. Shindo praised Miyamura's transformation, but Miyamura misunderstood, thinking that Shindo was referring to him being a senior in high school now. However, Shindo clarified that he was actually talking about Miyamura's girlfriend, assuming that Hori was his girlfriend. Miyamura corrected Shindo, explaining that Hori is not his girlfriend. Miyamura receives a message, and Hori suggests that he didn't have to clarify the situation, but Miyamura ignores her. When Hori asks to see the message, he hides it, claiming that it's from Shindo about them going on double dates sometimes. Miyamura deletes the message and calls Shindo, asking him to leave them alone. Hori questions whether he always talks to his middle school friends like that, to which Miyamura agrees. Hori then suggests that Miyamura try this kind of reaction with Toru, but Miyamura becomes flustered and blushes, saying that he will do it if he becomes even better friends with Toru. This leaves Hori wondering what Miyamura was like in middle school. Hori is on her way back home after grocery shopping when she runs into Shindo, and Miyamura and Toru are also walking in the same area. Miyamura sees Hori with Shindo and rushes over to punch Shindo without hesitation. Shindo asks to be introduced to Hori, and Miyamura promptly introduces him as if he found him on Google. Toru inquires about Shindo, but Miyamura denies knowing him. Hori suggests that they find a place with air conditioning to continue their conversation, and Shindo proposes going to a restaurant. Miyamura recalls his middle school days when some guys accidentally bumped into him and dropped his book. Shindo returned to pick up his books, but he struggled to remember Miyamura's correct name. This encounter led to Miyamura talking with his classmates for the first time and making his first friend. Despite being happy chatting with his new friend, Miyamura overheard Shindo's friend advising him not to associate with Miyamura due to his numerous piercings and gloomy demeanor. However, Shindo chose to ignore the advice. In the present, Miyamura reflects on how Shindo hasn't changed since middle school. Later at home, Hori develops a high fever, causing Sauda to worry and insisting that she rest at home instead of going to school. Hori awakens from a dream, and Miyamura offers her a towel. She questions whether she is hallucinating and asks why Miyamura is there. Miyamura checks her temperature, which is 37 degrees, and asks if she has taken any medication. He is about to go get drinks when Hori repeatedly asks where he is going and grabs his hand. Hori's actions stem from her childhood experiences of her mother always leaving her to go to work. She starts crying and continues to ask where he is going, prompting Miyamura to reassure her that he will never leave her, regardless of what she says or does. Later, Miyamura checks her fever and confesses his love to her. Hori wakes up in bed, startled to find that her fever has practically disappeared. She wonders if she decides not to hear it. Perhaps they can continue as they are for a little longer. Sauda departs for school, leaving Hori at home, grappling with her feelings for Miyamura. Miyamura's confession has left her in a state of uncertainty, unsure of how to face him. The narrative then shifts to a scene where Sauda, while strolling with his friend, spots Miyamura in the company of another girl. Later, while enjoying ice cream at home, Sauda shares this observation with Hori, mentioning that he saw Miyamura walking with a girl from a different school. This revelation unsettles Hori, who begins to question Miyamura's fidelity. She wonders if he could be cheating on her, but then rationalizes that Miyamura might have other friends. She probes Sauda for more information, asking if he overheard their conversation. Sauda, however, is unable to provide any additional details, except for the fact that the girl had placed her hand on Miyamura's shoulder. This piece of information only serves to heighten Hori's confusion and anxiety. That night, Hori finds herself reflecting on the absurdity of the situation. She contemplates reaching out to Miyamura to clear up the misunderstandings, but ultimately decides against it. The following morning, Toru attempts to greet her at school, but she asks him to keep quiet, not wanting Miyamura to know of her presence. This leads to a scene where Toru is left explaining to Miyamura that Hori is at school, but is avoiding him for some reason. As the day progresses, Miyamura tries to approach Hori, but she evades him, claiming that she needs to rush home. Miyamura then reveals that he was aware that Hori was awake when he confessed his feelings to her. However, Hori doesn't respond to Miyamura's revelation. Instead, she confronts him about the girl he was seen with. Miyamura, initially confused about which girl Hori is referring to, soon realizes that she is talking about Chika. This realization upsets Hori even more, especially when she learns that Miyamura addresses this girl by her first name, something he has never done with her. In an attempt to clarify the situation, Miyamura explains that Chika is Shindo's girlfriend and that he was merely helping them after they had tripped and hurt their feet. However, his repeated use of Chika's name frustrates Hori, leading her to throw her books at Miyamura in a fit of anger and storm off. It is only after Hori's departure that it is revealed that Miyamura doesn't even know the full name of Shindo's girlfriend. Back at home, Hori is filled with regret for her actions and wishes she had aimed her books at Miyamura's face instead. Sauda enters the scene, informing Hori of Miyamura's arrival. Hori, feeling cornered, instructs Sauda to tell Miyamura she's not home. However, Miyamura overhears this and is hurt. Hori, feeling the pressure, reluctantly allows Miyamura to stay. They both apologize to each other, realizing they've upset the other. Miyamura clarifies that he doesn't know the full name of Shindo's girlfriend, which helps Hori and Miyamura reconcile their differences. Miyamura then tells Hori that he was explaining everything, but she wasn't listening. Hori responds that she mostly listens to Miyamura, and she also heard about Miyamura's confession. They share a tender moment, which is interrupted by the arrival of Hori's father, Kyosuke. Kyosuke inquires about Hori's mother, but Hori questions his sudden appearance. Kyusuk then asks about Miyamura and wonders if he can fix his hair. Hori warns him not to smoke inside the house, and Kyusuk asks Miyamura if he smokes too, but Miyamura denies it. Kyusuk notices Miyamura's piercings and asks if he did them himself. Miyamura reveals that he pierced them in middle school himself. Hori interrupts by kicking Kyusuk's head, leading Kyusuk to question the kind of family they are. Kyusuk then comments on the lack of welcome and mentions that even Hori's mom is not at home. Hori retorts that this is what happens when you come home without any notice. Kyusuk asks Hori to prepare something to eat because he's hungry, and Hori complies. Miyamura attempts to leave, but Kyusuk stops him and asks him to share more about himself. During their conversation, Kyusuk compliments Miyamura's eyelashes. Hori then returns with food for Kyusuk. After having a bit of fun with Miyamura, Kyusuk asks Hori if Miyamura is her boyfriend. Hori blushes shyly but then admits that Miyamura is her boyfriend. Kyusuk jokingly says he won't approve because he doesn't like boys with long hair. However, Miyamura replies that he will cut his hair, but Kyusuk tells him not to because he looks handsome with it and advises him to just comb his hair. Kyusuk decides to comb Miyamura's hair and asks Hori for the pins. While combing his hair, Kyusuk asks Miyamura if he really wants to settle with Kyuko. Miyamura bluntly replies with a yes. Hori interrupts them and hands Kyusuk the pins, or more accurately, punches Kyusuk on his head with pins. Hori's mother also comes home and sees Kyusuk. After a moment, she regains her composure and mentions that they don't have enough plates for Kyusuk. Miyamura decides to leave. Hori escorts Miyamura outside, apologizing for her father's antics. Miyamura reassures her and expresses a desire to know her better. Holding hands, he confesses that he'd like to learn more about her with her consent. Miyamura, feeling embarrassed, informs Toru about their official relationship. Toru congratulates him, but appears slightly upset. At school, Sakura notices a change in Toru's behavior and confides in Ayasaki, who senses Sakura's hidden feelings. Driven by jealousy, Sakura rebuffs Ayasaki, believing she can't understand. Regretting her words, Sakura seeks Ayasaki and admits her feelings for a boy, blushing as she does so. Ayasaki compliments her, praising her blushing aura. Shu, forgetting his books, joins Toru, and Hori and Miyamura encounter them. Miyamura, feeling uneasy, is advised by Toru not to feel awkward. Later, Hori playfully uses Miyamura's first name, bringing joy to him. However, it turns out she was talking about Sauda's friend, teasing Miyamura by asking if she should use his first name, making them both blush in a cute moment. Hori's younger brother, Sauda, is upset with his father and asks him how long he plans to stay. Kyusuk avoids a direct answer and changes the subject. Sauda leaves the room, intending to go to the bathroom, and Hori's mom asks the same question. When are you planning to leave this house? Hori's father responds defensively, questioning his right to live with his family. Hori and Miyamura arrive at Hori's home directly, which is why Miyamura is in his school uniform. When Kyusuk sees Miyamura in uniform, he doesn't recognize him and asks who he is. Hori explains that he is Miyamura and that he hasn't styled his hair yet. Hori's mom then invites Miyamura to use the bathroom while they wait for dinner. After dinner, Miyamura checks the time and realizes it's late. Kyusuk suggests that Miyamura stay the night. Sauda is happy about the idea and offers to share his room with Miyamura, but Kyusuk insists that Miyamura sleep with him. Miyamura ends up sleeping in Kyusuk's room and bids goodnight to Hori. Later, Kyusuk asks Miyamura what he likes about his daughter, and Miyamura expresses admiration for Hori's non-judgmental nature. Kyusuk is pleased to hear this. When Miyamura tries to ask Kyusuk some questions, Kyusuk has already fallen asleep after just one question. The next morning, Miyamura heads to school directly from Hori's house after spending the night there. As they walk together, some students see them and start spreading rumors that Hori and Miyamura are dating. Miyamura's reputation at school isn't the best, leading to a lack of support for his relationship with Hori. Some even openly ridicule them. When asked directly, Hori confidently confirms that she and Miyamura are dating. Overhearing this, Miyamura becomes despondent, believing that he's tarnishing Hori's reputation. He decides to take action. The next day, Miyamura arrives at school sporting a new hairstyle. His transformation from an unremarkable student to a stylish young man leaves everyone astonished. His new look catapults him to popularity, especially among the girls. However, Hori isn't pleased with this development and starts acting distant due to jealousy. Later, Miyamura visits Hori's house again and receives a call from Shindo, his friend from middle school. Shindo invites Miyamura to his house, and both Miyamura and Hori go to Shindo's home. In Shindo's room, Hori is surprised to see a large collection of candies. Shindo explains that he won them as a prize in an online competition. Miyamura offers Shindo a candy, and after some time, Hori also tries one, However, the candy Shindo eats doesn't meet his expectations. Miyamura asks Hori about the flavor of Shindo's candy, but before she can answer, Miyamura unexpectedly kisses her. This leaves Hori shocked and speechless. Shindo asks Miyamura for a glass of water, and while in the kitchen, Miyamura comments on how tasty Hori's candy was. The following day at school, while Miyamura and Toru are having lunch together, Toru notices a girl watching Miyamura from a distance. Toru asks Miyamura if he knows the girl, but Miyamura denies knowing her. The girl then approaches Hori and asks if she's really dating Miyamura. Hori confirms this, causing the girl to run away. The girl later approaches Miyamura again, but he ignores her and continues walking. However, the girl persists in following him, which annoys Miyamura, and he asks her why she's following him. The girl raises her voice and departs. After the school bell rings, Hori and Miyamura are seen walking together when the same girl approaches them again. Hori questions her about her constant following of Miyamura. It is then revealed that the girl is infatuated with Hori, not Miyamura, and she wants Miyamura to break up with Hori because of her feelings for Hori. This leads to a rivalry between the second-year girl and Miyamura over Hori's affections. However, it's merely a diversion, and when the class bell rings, Miyamura takes Hori with him, stating they should leave as they are already late for class. After school, the girl shows up again. Miyamura informs her that Hori had left early due to some work at home. Subsequently, they both start walking towards their respective apartments. Upon reaching, they discover that they live in adjacent apartments. Miyamura opens his apartment door, but when the girl attempts to unlock her apartment, she realizes she has left her key inside. Despite his initial reluctance, Miyamura invites her into his apartment and offers her a piece of cake. The girl then asks if he often invites cute girls to his apartment. He assures her that it's a rare occurrence and mentions that even Hori seldom visits his apartment. The girl then inquires if he has any siblings, to which he replies that he is an only child. The girl expresses her surprise, assuming Miyamura might have siblings given his caring nature. This makes Miyamura laugh. After a while, the girl receives a call on her phone and announces that she can now enter her apartment. She thanks Miyamura and leaves. The next day, the two of them are waiting with Hori to go to school when some boys start harassing the second-year girl. She turns to Miyamura for help, and he steps in like a protective older brother, saving her from the boys. After a while, the second-year girl starts seeing Miyamura as a brother figure.